Before we begin, we want to let you know that some sensitive content is discussed during this episode, including that of sexual abuse. So please make sure to take care of yourself while listening.
Welcome to Healing Generations, a podcast creating a dialogue uplifting the importance of healing, strengthening, and supporting our communities, and that addresses the disparities and inequities in communities of color. Healing Generations is brought to you by the Healing Generations Institute, a collaborative initiative of the National Compadres Network and the Brotherhood of Elders. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on our new releases.
Welcome, everyone. This is Jerry Theo, and I want to welcome you to the Healing Generations podcast. And as part of the National Compadres Network, Brotherhood of Elders, we'd like to thank you for joining us today, for taking the time to come on this journey with us in which, our goal really is to lift up the medicine and the teachings and the blessings that we've learned along the way from our ancestors, from our families, but also to heal generations, the wounds that they have carried, that it came on to us and that we carry today, so that maybe, our children, our grandchildren will have, less wounds and more blessings that way. And so I want to begin just by thanking the ancestors, thanking your people, wherever you're at, whoever you're at, just, one of the first teachings is just accept who you are. Everyone that comes with you, all the grandmas, the blessing ones and those grandmas that give you coscorones, the ones that, were the tough ones, the really, happy lessons in our lives, but also those that are struggles, they learn from everything. So thank those ancestors and those people. We want to acknowledge where you're at today, the people, the land. I'm on the Tangwa Gabrielino land here in Whittier. But acknowledge those people where you're at, people in your barrio and your community that help make up who you are, and then your family as well, right? We want to bring your family in and you as well. Just acknowledge yourself, that way. And we do that in a good way. We learned that the first step of really good relationships is acknowledgement, And today, I'm emotional, very, very blessed, very pleased, very honored today to have with us. I consider him a good friend, a compadre, a brother, a mentor, an elder, a good camarada. We've been on this road a long, long time together. He is a therapist, a teacher, someone that has given his life to helping people and has been one of the most transparent teachers that I know by him sharing his life and his struggles, but also his healing path. And who I'm talking about today is Efrain Ramirez, a real good friend and originators of the Círculo de Hombres. He was there at that first retiro that we had, and he's followed us along the way and been a significant part of one of the elders there in the Círculo. So, Efrain, I want to welcome you and thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Jerry. And the feeling of compadres is mutual. And I really, truly was blessed when you told me about the retreats at Jolon, at the mission, and I didn't know what to expect, but it was, for me, a transformational period in my life. My childhood was not pleasant, but going there and not only venting and talking about my past, but listening to other men's with their quejas and complaining about what happened to them was also, in a way, Jerry, very transforming for me, that sometimes we think we have the only cargas in the world. And then you listen to other men who sometimes are not very expressive. You realize, I'm not the only one. Todos traemos una carga. Yeah, it was great. It was great experience for me. 20-something years, I think I went to the retreats.
Yeah. Well, you were there in the beginning in 1988,
Yeah.
But I want to begin by just asking a little about you, Efrain, you and, your people and where you came from. I don't know where you grew up or your family was from, but a little bit about that, and then we're going to get into some of the other topics about healing and growth and that.
Okay. My mother was from Chihuahua, Mexico, and my padre, whom I hardly knew, was from Sonora, Mexico also. My mother came to the United States when she was 11 years old, And she settled in the Salinas Valley in the town of Soledad. Salinas Valley is an agricultural arena, and they grow a lot of vegetables there. So my first working experience was working out in the fields, which I don't remember with a lot of pleasant feelings because sometimes, Jerry, getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to get that bus that had windows you couldn't close, so it was always cold there. And then I remember vividly it was morning dew. There was water on the carrot tops, the green, and your Levi's got wet from the knees down, and it was unbearable. And sometimes it was not like 8 hours of work. Sometimes you work from dawn to when the sun went down. It was hard work, but also it taught me what hard work is. And later on in life, when I became an educator, quote unquote, I realized going back and thinking about working there, it was quite a lesson to learn. And also to feel compassion and empathy for workers that are still working in the fields. Yeah, it was hard, Jerry, very, very hard. My mother was not a soft lady. She was not a lady that cuddled you. Eran, perdón la palabra, chingazos. That's how she disciplined us. The belt.
Yeah.
Jerry, the ironing cord, which you could detach from the iron back then.
Yeah.
That stung to the point of peeing in your pants. But again, when I reflect, when I go back, it wasn't so bad. The beatings, yes, they hurt, but I wasn't killed or maimed or, bones broken. But now I can appreciate the lessons that I learned from her. And she was in other ways, Jerry, a very strong woman. It's funny, but in a way, Jerry, I wanted to be like her, to have her character, her toughness to do things that most women would not do. Like minor mechanics in the car, the old car that she drove, stuff like that. Digging a ditch, getting us to work, cooking. She was always the first one up in the morning and the last one to go to bed. And the food she cooks, for me, Mexican food, absolutely delicious, I think. Better than any restaurant that I can go eat here in Whittier. Yeah.
You give a glimpse into your family life, in growing up, and what it says to me, because I think about my mom. I don't know what my mom went through. I mean, all the internal things and she was just a mom to me. But what I didn't realize is, as a woman, she was also going through, I'm sure many, many trials and tribulations, and unfortunately, when you don't have a place or you don't have a way to take care of that in a good way, then it gets transferred to your kids, and the result being the belt or the cord or the chancla or whatever that is, And we learn from those lessons. We feel those lessons, we learn from those lessons. But it's beautiful that, you, in your reflection, are able to see the balance of that with your mom. That besides her, being harsh with you and maybe, disciplining you in a very, if you will, people would say abusive way, that you also see the strength in her. And I see, as we've walked this road, one of the beautiful lessons that I learned from you is that duality. The duality of that. You're harsh too. When I met you and I was doing a presentation, you remember?
I remember, Jerry. Don't embarrass me.
No. I was doing a presentation here, maestro here. I'm doing a presentation on cultural issues and values and all of that, and our culture and the tree and the, all of that, and talking about the beauty of our culture and everything. And after I finished the presentation and, people are applauding and everything like that, this gentleman by the name of Efrain, I said, "There's any questions?" Yeah. He says, I don't know about all that.
What the hell are you talking about?
What are you talking about? I wasn't raised like that, or those values, and and everybody was stunned in the room because you were, basically challenging me, and I was somewhat embarrassed, but at the same time welcomed that other lens of that our families do struggle, and our families have been through a lot of trauma, and our families many times do transfer that trauma onto to our children. The subsequent conversation of that is that we finished, and I answered you, and I said, yeah, we have both sides. We have the cargas and regalos, And even though you embarrassed me and challenged me, we walked out together.
Yes.
And that's where you begin talking about your work, and you begin talking about you helping families and you working with families too. And that's when I invited you to come to the retiro, right? If you remember, I said, hey, we're having a gathering of men, where maybe we can begin addressing those harmful things that you're talking about in our family, right? And that's why I invited, and that's when you came to the retiro. Yeah.
I think that when you invited me, I had no hostility toward you.
Yeah.
It was what you were talking about, the tree. By the way, I have this little tree here. I carry it to remind me of you. It was a whole different upbringing. You were brought up in, I believe, Compton.
Yeah.
And I was in the Salinas Valley in the small town of Soledad, mostly, Anglos and Mexicans. And I went to school in the early 40s, Jerry.
Yeah.
And there was still some minor discrimination. We were not allowed to speak Spanish at school or in the playgrounds, but we did anyway on the way home with our friends at home, etc. And then we were taught to speak Spanish to our elders in the neighborhood. But between our friends at school and with the teachers, we spoke English. So we learned, not knowingly, to become bilingual. It was fun. A lot of it was hard. The poverty in which I grew up in was not pleasant, but it also taught me to be a better man. When you invited me, Jerry, to participate in the retiros in the National Compadres Network, to me, it was like, I don't mean to be too religious here, but God sent. It was like, okay, here's a journey that's going to be entirely new for you, and it's going to help transform you. And there's going to be a lot of kindness, a lot of love, a lot of talking about our ancestors, etc., which you don't like at all, Efrain. But it's going to be a thing good for you, and you will grow, you will develop, and sometimes, Jerry, unconsciously, because once you hear something, it stays inside your brain, and slowly it begins to evolve. And before you know it, damn, I love going to these retiros. That was not me.
And I think that journey, in fact, we went up there together. We flew up there together, and we ended up journeying together, and that was part of that path. But, and I think everything you say is true. The Círculo, when we started, and I always say this, we didn't know what we were doing. We came together. We knew, as you say, God sent. We were sent there to really heal our families, and as men to heal each other. And you came because you were interested in that, but also because I invited you. But one of the things that I don't think that you knew is that you were bringing medicine to us.
No.
That you were bringing a teaching to us.
I did not know.
And as we sat in that círculo, and I tell this story all the time, we sat in that círculo, men not knowing each other, being very uncomfortable sharing because we're taught as men don't share, and, very stoic. When it came to you to introduce yourself, you introduced something to us that we had never seen, that we had never heard, because you introduced your pain. And you introduced something that many of the men that were in that circle, and then subsequently for many, many years, we've, come to recognize the pain of sexual abuse. It's something that we as men don't talk about. It's something that even if it's happened to us, we don't share. It's something that, especially in public, we don't acknowledge. And you shared it as part of who you were. And to be honest, I remember the day because we were all shocked. We were all shocked. And as you began to cry, we all began to cry because we knew that someplace in our family, someone that we knew also had walked that road that you walked, And it was probably one of the most bravest, courageous, but the most healing things that happened in that círculo because you opened up a different path for us. You opened up a vulnerability for us men. And after you shared, then everybody shared at a different level.
Yes.
Everybody was now sharing cargas, and everybody was crying. Everybody was talking. And as I mention all the time, Once we finished that círculo, after you opened us up that way, we realized that as much as, we were all therapists and social workers and teachers and all these professional people, we realized we were all jacked up, and that the first order of business for us was to do our self-healing. So I wonder if you can talk about that day and that experience and your experience of having to struggle with sexual abuse.
Well, Jerry, when you mentioned me, opening up and talking about my sexual abuse, Jerry, it was rage. I was really hurting a lot because I was never able to talk to anybody about it. Jerry, I'm a Catholic and I'll die a Catholic. But in confession, I never confessed that I had been sexually abused. And the hardest part was that I was at a very tender age. I was between 6 and 9 years of age.
Yeah.
I mean, that's when your mind is developing.
Yeah.
So, yes, it impacted me a lot. What I regret now was not being able to go to confession and talk about that. La vergüenza, Jerry. The shame was so powerful.
Yeah.
It kept me engulfed in a feeling, a sensation of, you don't tell anybody this.
Yeah.
Nobody what. I was really angry with God. I hated him. It was like, how can you let this happen to me? But at the same time, hating God made me go to his son, Christ. I was going insane, Jerry, by the age of 12. And this voice in my head said, take him to the church. We are losing him. At that time, I didn't know why.
Yeah.
But I did go to church. Now I can reflect back, and I'm grateful that I did go to church because I listened to the gospel, the words of Christ. It's funny, I did not like the Father, but I liked the Son. Because of my mother, I never prayed to the Virgin Mary. I didn't like her at all either. Those are concepts, some kind of uninformed knowledge that we pick at that age to kind of defend our child within.
Yeah.
And being sexually molested was not pleasant because that's not what I wanted. My stepfather molested me, and he was a carpenter. He was very good at carpentry, and that's what I wanted. He would teach me, how to hammer, how to saw, etc. Little thing that, and Jerry, I loved him. I misinterpreted that attention as love,
Right.
but I didn't get from my mom.
Right.
And so it's the highest sense of betrayal when you love somebody and they molest you sexually.
Yeah.
So I have lived with that all my life.
Yeah.
Here I am at 83, and the memories are still there.
Yeah.
But thanks to the retiros and many other symposiums that I have gone to for healing, I can still remember it. It's not a memory that's going to go away.
Right.
But there's much less pain.
Yeah. Right.
Because it destroys you. It shatters your body, your mind, your spirituality.
Right. And thank you. I mean, it's the words and what you share is, are often very hard to hear. And they were that day when we heard them in the círculo, because you don't talk about those things, right? No. And not directly. And you brought the acknowledgement and the truth. And what we need to face many times in our own communities, our own families, we need to look at these things. But since that day, you went on a healing journey, You went on a healing journey to heal yourself and then to work with others. Because I know your work, you were working at the Child Guidance Center.
Los Angeles Child Guidance Clinic.
And so you took that hurt and that pain and transformed that into working with families. And I know, because we've had many conversations, the tremendous impact that, out of your pain, transforming that into working with families, into working with youth, into working with children, into working with parents. I wonder if you can talk about that work and the importance of that work in your life.
Okay. prior to working at the Los Angeles Child Guidance Clinic, I was working at a lamp company. I liked the job. And when I reflect back working at the lamp company, within the 4 years that I started there, I became the manager. I was that good, but I never gave myself credit.
Right.
Then it got to the point that I needed something else, that desire, that craving.
Right.
And I made up a resume and I sent it out. And at the Los Angeles Guidance Clinic, they got my resume and they realized back then they didn't have a person that was bilingual. They didn't have anyone that spoke Spanish. So that's how I got hired there. And Jerry's unbelievable, but I had no formal education in taking or dealing with traumatized children. But I was very blessed at that time.
Yeah.
I knew innately what these children needed.
Right.
More than anything, to be held. If I could just share a small story, we had a little boy. His name was Oscar. I also have a brother that was named Oscar. And he was a whirlwind of terror. He did not like to be cuddled or touched or whatever. He was totally, totally frightened. And one day we were outside and he did something, I forget what it was. And I said, Oscar, let's go. We're going inside. You cannot play out here anymore. And he was not happy. So I took him inside and I sat him on my lap and held him. We were taught how to hold a child so that you don't hurt them. And he started struggling, just really struggling, wanting, even to bite me. And I kept saying and repeating, Jerry, once you stop struggling, I will let you go. I will let you go out and play again. Once you stop struggling, he would not do it. I just held on to him. And I would say, Jerry, thinking back now, probably about 5 minutes, I held him gently, not hurting him. And finally, he just relaxed. And he just kind of sank into my body. And I said, okay, Oscar, are you ready to go outside? And this was in Spanish.
Yeah.
He said, yes. Okay, mijo, let's go. From that day on, Jerry, he changed entirely. Where did I get that intuition to deal with him in that respect? I have no knowledge. It's God's gift, the Virgin Mary's gift, Christ's gift. But it came, and also working at the retiros. Yeah, I loved doing that work. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. And then 5 years went by, and because I didn't have a credential in dealing with children, I was removed from there. I was not qualified. And they brought in a person with a master's. Yeah, and I became her assistant. And again, gratefully, I learned so much about how to deal with children from her. And then she was not getting paid enough, so she left. They left me in charge. Unbelievable, huh?
Without the degree or credential, they left you in charge.
Knowledge. Sometimes we don't really value the mistakes that we make in life. Mistakes are your best teachers because you learn what not to do next time.
Yeah. Huh? Well, I think what you speak to, I know what you speak to, is that intrinsic knowledge that comes through our ancestors, but also comes through, working in the fields and seeing your mom work hard and seeing also the pain and discrimination that families go through, that children go through. You can see what they don't get and what they're not getting and the hurt of not being held. And instead of somebody bringing you and holding you, scolding or disciplining or whacking you or whatever. And I think out of all that experience and then your own abuse, you knew what you needed. You know what you didn't get. And all of that came through you, not logically, but intuitively through your spirit. And that's what you were able to give the children. But not only the children, that's what you gave us, And I, I mean, you have a reputation in the Círculo, of being a truth teller, because we'd be sitting in Círculo and some guys would be saying some stuff and you say, wait a minute, that's bullshit, This is really, and so there's another side that I think, the duality of us that sometimes you were able to bring out in us. You were to bring out and share about, let's really get to the nitty gritty of what's going on. And what I really appreciated about you is that truthfulness. Sometimes bien brusco, so it comes across harsh but you're one of those elders, you're one of those grandpas that, you don't let people mess around, let's get to it, let's deal with it, because you realize the pain that can be caused if we don't deal with our pain, if we don't deal with our truth, And as you're an elder, you're 83, you've carried a lot of lessons, and so many people in the Círculo look to you, and call you, and now, you're in a different phase in your life,
Totally.
You've gained these lessons, and you're an elder and a wisdom keeper, and I'm wondering, what lessons would you give if you were to tell the 18-year-old Efrain or the 18-year-old Jerry Theo or the younger generation, things that you wish somebody would have told you or prepped you for? What are those lessons in life that you think are really, really important to know and to live?
For a young one, 18 and around that age, I would advise them to totally appreciate what their parents or grandparents did for them. I've heard stories where grandparents have actually raised the child.
Yes.
And these kids are looking for their parents when they have parents at home, right there, the grandmother and the grandfather and aunts and uncles that took care of them.
Yeah.
And that yearning, where's my mom? Why did she leave me, etc. And it's incredible, Jerry, how you blame yourself. I must have done something wrong for them to leave me. And you don't value what your grandparents gave you until later on in life. For older men and women, I would say appreciate what happened to you in your life, because in a way, indirectly, and if you allow it, if you're receptive to it, to your teachings early on, it helped you become the person, the woman or the man that you are now. Not when you were younger. When we're young, sometimes we're full of anger, we're full of resentment, we're full of remorse. And you don't really, truly enjoy what you're getting from your grandparents or the neighborhood sometimes. There's a saying, Jerry, in Spanish, el pan ajeno hacia el hijo bueno. It's when you get nurturing, in a way, indirectly, I'm translating here, when you get nurturing from a stranger, a neighbor, that's love. But no, we don't want that. We want it from, mom or dad. Where are they?
Yeah.
And you don't know how much you deny yourself. Yeah. In life, now at this age, I can also think back, Jerry, to know that everything that happened in my life, I'm not saying it was intentional. It just happened. Be receptive. My uncle, my mother's brother, who was an alcoholic and lived in Laguna Beach, my mother went to live with him and took us with him. It's amazing what you can learn from a drunk. A lot of words of wisdom. People with, I think, I'm not a therapist, a drug counselor, they've gone through so much that drinking is their medicine, is their addiction.
Yeah.
To do what? To forget sometimes the pain, the hurt, etc.
Yeah.
And what I would advise older persons, probably in your 30s, when you begin to reflect about your own personal life, is enjoy whatever happened to you. You survived it. No matter what hardships you went through back then, you're here, mijita, mijito. You're here. Enjoy what happened to you back then. That's what I would say. Words of wisdom, I have tons of them, but not right now.
Well, I think you speak to some really important things, and is that aspect of acceptance, because I think on that healing journey, we all have experienced, I remember as a kid experiencing, some very harsh, things, seeing my parents fighting, my brother in the barrio, and shootings and all kinds of stuff. The yelling in the house, all I see, all that stuff, us not having a lot to eat, and out of that, because I didn't know how to deal with it, I got asthma, right?
Wow.
I got asthma, and I couldn't breathe. It was just too much, right? And not realizing at the time. Now I know that that trauma and stress affects you physiologically. It goes in your body, and if you don't deal with it, it stays in your body, and then it becomes some chronic illness that you have. And so many times when I've worked with people, they're still carrying that. They may be 40 and 50, but they're still carrying the same story, and they tell the same story, and they talk about the pain like it was today, like they're experiencing it now, and they have the same resentimiento towards their mom or their dad or whoever, like they were doing it to them now, right? And what a lot of times people don't realize is when you tell that same story in the same way, in the present, like it was happening now, your body feels it like it's now.
Yes, Jerry.
Feels it like it's happening again now, right? And one of the things that I have learned from you in your journey, and not that it's been easy or anything like that, but how important it is to transform those experiences. You say enjoy. Well, enjoy or accept or whatever. Doesn't mean enjoy mean it was good. Doesn't mean enjoy that it was right. Doesn't mean enjoy that it was appropriate. It means that when you look back at that part of your story, you recognize that pain and that struggle is as much you as the blessings and the wonderful food and the costumbres and the parties. That's all part of you, right? It's all part of you. And so how do we come to a place where we can accept, this is who I am, this is part of my journey. I'll learn from those painful lessons.
Yes.
And what you did with that, which again is reflective of healing and growth, is you took those lessons and then used them with children. You say, I intuitively know what they need. And I will hold on to children even when their pain is pushing me away. I will guide them in a loving, instructive way. And at the same time, as you're walking your path, you're doing your work. Because every year that I saw you at the retiro, you had done more work. You had, I know you were going to therapist as well. You were doing your work. You were trying to get better, all along. And I think, that's really instructive for many of us, because we think, well, either we say, ya pasó, I'm not going to talk about it, I'm not going to deal with it, and it affects your body and it affects your mood, it affects your relationship, or you hold on to it so much it becomes you. You become your wound, right?
Yes.
So
then you wound others.
Right. So talk a little bit about that, about that journey for you of healing.
The journey has been difficult and enlightening. I say that because personally, I've had about 23 or more years of therapy. I remember once when a therapist asked me, what would you say to your child that was molested? It was very, very hard for me to speak to the child that was molested because, Jerry, I had this internal image of him that he was some kind of pervert, that he liked it, that he enjoyed it, etc. I came down hard on him. And then this Gestalt therapy where you talk to an empty chair and then you jump to the empty chair, you talk back. The little kid came back and said to me, where were you? Why didn't you protect me? What the hell were you doing? You were so into yourself. You did not take care of me. I was alone. I was isolated. I had no one to take care of me. It was a catharsis that I will never forget, Jerry. It was, I'm looking for the word. I was going to say pleasant to talk to him that way and get that interaction going between the two of us. But it also made me realize the hurt that was carrying. And he he probably attacked me like I attacked you.
Yeah.
Yeah. The journey, I'm going to say, has been enlightening. From trials and tribulations, I've learned so much to be a noble man, a better man, a healthy individual man. I'm not afraid to use the word man because a lot of men use the word person. I'm a person. I use the word man. I am a man. That's what I am.
Yeah.
But in here, who am I?
Yeah.
You know, I'm the one that listens to everything that's going on outside. I'm the one that's listening to all that and sometimes crazy dialogue that's going on inside my head. I'm the one, I want to say it, and I don't, that God made.
Yeah.
And the lessons that I have learned through my long journey.
Yes.
And I'm not bragging or trying to get men to enlist into retiros, but that was so transformational, and I will not forget that at all. And I wish I was healthy enough to go to the retiros still.
Yeah. Well, you're there. You're there. And, every retiro that we have, you're mentioned. Your chair is right there. Your consejos come through us, and we're so grateful. We're so grateful for you because you've impacted thousands and thousands of men because
Thank
your
you.
words and your experience have come through so many. And we tell your stories. Even if you're not there, we still tell your story. And now I know, one of the cherished roles you play is you're a grandfather. And you have grandkids. And you're also, you're writing stories.
Yes.
You're writing stories. I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about you being a grandfather and you writing stories and how that's part of your journey too.
First of all, what I've had to learn, because my children are very American-like, I don't interfere when they're disciplining my grandchildren.
Right.
I remain quiet. It's hard not to want to guide them in my way, in my journeys, what I learned. And sometimes, Jerry, it's incredible. They cover their ears. They don't want to hear. Because again, I tell them the truth.
Yeah.
Only once did I intervene with the discipline with my daughter and my son-in-law. And that was they did something to one of my granddaughters, and I was very disturbed by it. And so I did. I wrote them a letter regarding what I had learned at the Child Guidance Clinic. You don't reward bad behavior. You reward good behavior. Sometimes it's difficult to ignore bad behavior, but you don't pounce on them.
Right.
It's enough to say, tell me what you just did wrong. They might be afraid to tell you because they're afraid of la chancla, el cinto, whatever, but my granddaughters don't get hit. They're afraid to tell the truth. It's amazing. Christ says, tell the truth and it will set you free. And as much as that phrase is used, we're afraid to tell the truth sometimes because we have to disclose something about ourselves. I wrote that letter to my daughter and my son-in-law, and they never got back to me. Not a word. Should I, get riled up? Should I confront them? Should I say something? No.
No. You did what you needed to do.
That's it.
Yeah.
Se acabó, as we say in Spanish,
So how are these grandchildren transforming your life?
Learning to know that they are nothing like with the children that I used to work with.
Yes.
Or it's a different generation.
Yes. And it speaks to the generations. It speaks to the generations that, we grew up in a certain generation in which you don't even look at your parents wrong. You don't speak back to them. You don't say anything to them, And, I recognize we call it respeto, we call it respect. But at the same time, I realized that some of that was not respect. Some of it was being too harsh, and we should allow children to speak their mind and to share. And there's a balance someplace in between. And I think as a grandfather, I appreciate that, you're learning that role of when to speak and when not to speak. And even when you do speak, they still may do things different, and that's this new generation.
Different
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
generation.
Tell me about your stories, because you're at 83, you're writing stories. You're writing.
How that came about, I have no knowledge.
So I know that you have several stories. I don't want to give away the ending because I want people to read your stories when they finally come out. But I know there was a story that the one that you sent me. You sent me a story about
The story that I sent you was my granddaughter, the youngest one, Sophia, asked me, how did you survive? Because I don't know how it came about that I was telling her we had nothing growing up.
right.
No toys, no roller skates,
Right.
no nothing. We had to learn how to make our own things, like a
Right.
slingshot.
Right.
We would go to the local dump and pick up stuff that maybe other kids had discarded and learn to do something with them. So I started writing, and it's called How Did You Survive? That's how that my title. And then I talk about growing up in my poverty. Poverty is not nice. It can be quite cruel. No, poverty is not cruel. It's the people that surround you that are cruel. Mira que pobre. Ni zapatos trae, etc. That's
Well, and I also think it's how you see, because I remember as kids, we would take roller skates, and the ones that were messed up, we'd take the skates off and put them on a piece of wood, and they became a skateboard.
yes,
Right?
Before
And
skateboards.
Before skateboards. It became a skateboard, and you just make stuff out of nothing.
Yeah.
We get the ice cream sticks and put them all together, and
Yes.
they become, these little flying saucers that we'd make.
I still do that. Yeah, and you learn the string games.
The string,
the
yes,
string games. It's la pata de gallo, etc.
So it's beautiful that that you're now talking to your granddaughters about this, about how you grew up, and even though it was harsh, how we create creatively, take something that's difficult and harsh and make it fun, And I think, what I've learned, Efrain, from you is truly about this process of healing. All of us go through our cargas. All of us have been through our difficulties. All of us, even today, go through issues today. I don't care how much therapy, how well-rounded you are, even at my age, even though I do all this work, I still have my issues that I deal with. But the critical thing is, will you invest energy into working and transforming the cargas into teachings, into medicine, into blessings, into something that can not only transform you, but transform that next generation? And to me, that's the epitome of what you've done. You've taken some very, very harsh and very difficult experiences and transformed them into helping others. And not only the children that you worked with over the years, now your grandkids that you're telling stories to, but you brought that medicine to Círculo.
Yeah.
And you really opened us up to a process of taking away the vergüenza, taking away the shame of going through struggles, of being abused, of experiencing very harsh things within our own upbringing, and transforming that into something that not only we can live with, but something that we could share to others to make other people's lives better. And as an elder, Efrain, I want to just acknowledge you.
Thank you.
I want to thank you, on behalf of thousands of people and thousands of men. But really, just want to appreciate you, for who you are and what you've done, and the continued teachings that hopefully you'll continue giving us as we go through this, as this process. I don't know if there's any final words you want to share with the audience before
Final
we leave.
words. I think I know innately. I still don't know how to appreciate me, who I am. I always deflect it,
Yeah.
and I'm learning how to truly appreciate the man because of my journey that I became.
Yeah.
I will say it again proudly. I am a noble man.
Yes.
Thanks to all that journey. Don't get stuck in the past, because you'll form a rut.
Yeah.
And then when you want to get out, you can't. Take whatever happened to you in your life and make something good out of it, something positive. If there's a negative, there's a positive. Hay bajas y hay sus vidas. Depends on how you take it. Now, my saving grace was that internal voice that said, take him to the church. We are losing him. Where that voice came from, I have no knowledge. I innocently attribute it to the Holy Spirit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah.
I know what happened to me.
Yeah. And I think, just knowing that all of us have that spirit someplace way down in us, whether it's the Holy Spirit or whether we consider our ancestors or our grandmother's prayers, I'm so glad for that voice that came to you, that came through you, that guided you to the church, guided you to a place where you could feel sacred, where you could begin your healing path, because that journey brought you to us, and it's brought you, to help so many people and guide so many people, and it's guided you to us being good friends on this road and learning together and enjoying with so many things. I just want to thank you once again, for who you are and what you've done. And as we finish today, I just want to the audience, just thank you for going on this journey with us today. We really blessed and privileged to bring an elder, a wisdom keeper, a truth teller, and you heard a lot of truth today. Some of it very real, and some of it, may have triggered you, may have brought, memories to you. So I want to say to the audience, make sure you take care of yourself. Make sure if you need to talk to somebody about it, that you reach out to somebody. Make sure that if it brought up lessons or wounds or issues that you have, that you pursue, some help, some support, some therapy, whatever that you need. It's all part of the journey. And those of you that are on this path of providing healing, thank you. Those of you that are the providers, the counselors, the therapists, thank you. Those of you that are on this path of recovering the sense of the sacredness, thank you so much. That's why we do this, And so we give thanks for the ancestors today, give thanks for all the prayers, all the medicine, and give thanks for you. Please take care of yourself. Pass this podcast on to other people. And remember, in the end, you're sacred and you're a blessing just the way you are. Thank you very much. Él es Dios.
Él es Dios.
For more information about Healing Generations and the Healing Generations Institute, visit nationalcompadresnetwork.org and be sure to subscribe to stay up to date with our new releases.